When Neanderthal man was discovered in Europe around 150 years ago, Europeans knew very little about Africa. In fact, maps at that time stated that much of Africa, especially the interior, was absolutely unknown or completely unexplored, and the continent was known as the white man's grave. A map of the continent at that time stated that all we know is that it is immense and arid sands are intersected by a complete collection of the most ferocious beasts and uncivilized man. Nonetheless, in southern Africa, 100 years ago, was discovered possibly the most massive human in the fossil record. The Kabwe skull was discovered in cave deposits quarried during metal ore mining in southern Africa, in the heart of the white man's grave, nearly 600 miles from the nearest coast. On June 17, 1921, a miner discovered the Kabwe cranium at the Broken Hill Mine, a lead and zinc mine in northern Rhodesia, now Zambia. According to news reports of the discovery, the massive empty eye sockets appear to have terrified the miners, who fled when they first saw the skull. The skull was dubbed Rhodesian Man at the time of discovery, but it is now known as the Broken Hill Skull, or the Kabwe cranium. The lower jaw is unfortunately missing, but it must have been massive and had a nice set of choppers. Even the massive Heidelberg jaw of Germany is slightly narrower and shorter than would be required to fit the Kabwe skull. It is among the best preserved human fossils, and exhibits several unique and perplexing features, and belonged to an individual who must have been an absolute unit when he walked the earth. This species had a large brain, muscular build, prominent brow ridges, and a broad face, making him a powerful and adaptable hominid. Kabwe man had much thicker necks than modern humans to support their massive skulls, and both the back of the skull and the powerful jaw region exhibit muscle attachments that distinguish such a neck. They also had thick, heavy bones with powerful muscle attachments. Indeed, the skull suggests an extremely robust individual with the most pronounced brow ridges of any known hominin fossil. Everything in Africa during the Middle Stone Age was huge. Zebras weighed up to 1,500 pounds, compared to a maximum of 1,000 pounds today, and Cape buffalo weighed over 2,000 pounds and had horns 10 feet across, compared to only 4 feet today. Kabwe man's large peepers most likely provided superior low-light vision, allowing them to maneuver in the dark for ambushes and dawn hunting raids. Interestingly, a round hole in the side of the skull could have been caused by a pointed wooden spear wound, suggesting a violent end to his life, before his body was thrown down a cave shaft. The skull is strikingly similar to the skulls of the Neanderthal man of our old European Paleolithic, but it has an even more brutish appearance. Human fossils known as Neanderthaloid have large Neanderthal-like features such as large brow ridges, large eye sockets, and low-vaulted, elongated brain cases. In fact, the Kabwe cranium, as well as other African skulls, are sometimes referred to as African Neanderthals. Although it is often suggested that the large eyes of Neanderthal man evolved as a result of the low-light conditions in Ice Age Europe, this is a null hypothesis because tropical African fossils also have extremely large eye sockets. The Kabwe skull's large eye sockets may have provided the necessary space for huge eyes, enabling improved visual acuity and low-light vision. This adaptation could have been beneficial for the species in their specific ecological niche, such as environments with dense vegetation or during periods of twilight or nocturnal activity. The larger eyes would have allowed for capturing more light and enhancing the ability to detect movement or spot potential prey or predators. The ecological context in which the species inhabited could have influenced the size of the eye sockets. For example, if the Kabwe man lived in open grassland or savanna environments, having larger eyes and eye sockets could have been advantageous for scanning large expanses and detecting potential threats or resources from a distance. Alternatively, if they inhabited dense forests or undergrowth, larger eyes would have been beneficial for navigating through complex forest environments. High testosterone levels have also been linked to thicker brow ridges and better vision. Indeed, the larger eye sockets in the Kabwe skull may have been an adaptation to accommodate the neural circuitry needed for effective visual perception and interpretation, as they would have provided a greater influx of visual information and necessitated a corresponding increase in the brain's processing capabilities. In addition to making people more aggressive, testosterone influences how human skulls grow, and this factor was important in the study. This is fascinating because of the mysteries and unanswered questions about our ancient brothers and sisters. Kabwe man was distinguished not only by unique skeletal adaptations, but likely also by a unique hormonal condition that has no close parallels in modern human hormonal conditions, either normal or pathological. This condition may have evolved as a result of genes, life in a harsh environment, and an almost entirely meat-based diet. The current average natural male testosterone level is approximately 400 to 600 nanograms, as indicated by a variety of laboratory results. However, Kabwe man was likely stomping around with levels consistent with or exceeding 1,000 or even 1,500 nanograms, which would be comparable to a man taking a strong weekly dose of testosterone booster. The answer to Kabwe man's large eyes lies in the need to see well in the dark, which necessitates many visual adaptations, including the ability to see extremely well in blue light, in very low light in color, and color compensation that is dramatically altered. Additionally, this necessitates faster vision to see movement in low light, which is accomplished by having much faster neuronal response speed, actually double that of modern humans. This is accomplished by having vastly higher levels, resulting in cat-like vision and reflexes. When a set of enzymes known as cytochrome P450 are inactive, the degradation of sex hormones is significantly slowed, resulting in very high levels of testosterone, as well as a very different hormonal balance than in modern humans. The cytochrome P450 enzymes play a crucial role in the production of a variety of substances, including steroids. This allows the visual organs to work much more quickly in identifying movement, which also allows for faster processing of visual imagery, though the main purpose was to see motion faster in order to identify threats and opportunities. All of this is required for low-light vision and activities like hunting in low light or the dark. It has also been suggested that the large noses of Neanderthals were also an adaptation to the cold. But in prehistoric Africa, we also find fossils with very large nasal openings. The Kabwe skull's large nasal aperture may have improved airflow during respiration by allowing for a greater volume of air to pass through the nasal cavity, enabling efficient exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide. This adaptation could have been beneficial for the species during physically demanding activities or in environments with lower oxygen levels. Additionally, the increased surface area within the nasal cavity, facilitated by a larger nasal aperture, may have aided in filtering airborne particles, improving air quality, and lowering the risk of respiratory issues. This is also seen in the gorilla. The size of the nasal aperture may have also played a role in thermoregulation, especially in a species that lives in a variety of climates. In warmer climates, the increased nasal surface area could have facilitated evaporative cooling as air passed over the moist nasal membranes. In colder climates, the larger nasal aperture might have helped to warm the cold air. The size of the nasal aperture could have influenced vocalization capabilities and communication strategies. A larger nasal aperture could have also allowed for greater resonance and amplification of vocalizations, enabling more effective communication within the species. This adaptation could have been especially relevant in contexts such as group coordination during hunting or warning signals. The first report on the fossil was titled "A New Caveman from Rhodesia, South Africa." According to the report by the British Natural History Museum, the Kabwe skull was described as being in a remarkably fresh state of preservation, with the bone having simply lost its animal matter and not having been mineralized in the least. As shown in the accompanying photographs, it is strangely similar to the skull of the Neanderthal race found in the caves of Belgium, France, and Gibraltar. Pre-human fossils, known as hominoids, have been discovered in East Africa dating back 5 million years. However, the missing link between pre-man and modern man's immediate ancestors, such as Kabwe man, has yet to be discovered, which will blow the scientific community's lid off. Nonetheless, his brain case is typically human, with a wall no thicker than that of the average European, and its capacity is well above the lower human limit. Its large and heavy face is even more simian in appearance than that of Neanderthal man, with the great inflated brow ridges being especially prominent. The broken hillman's skull resembles Homo neanderthalensis more than any other human race or variety, living or fossil. There has been much debate about the brow ridge's function, if any. Most theories revolve around its function as a feature that strengthened the skull or helped dissipate forces passing through it. Nevertheless, researchers recently stated that the latter was unlikely, instead speculating that it may have played a role in archaic human social signaling by improving aggressive facial expressions. The orbital arches are as prominent as in Neanderthal man. The forehead is even more receding. The lower jaw must have been very massive. The brain of this man is of quite a low type. Its prefrontal and lower temporal regions are reduced in size, but it shows an unexpected prominence of the auditory region. Although the skull closely resembles that of Neanderthal man, the shape of the brain case and the position of the foramen magnum are so different that researchers hesitate to refer to the two skulls as the same species. In fact, the foramen magnum in Neanderthal man is more backward at the base of the skull than in modern man, which is consistent with the overall posture of the body. In Kabwe man, the foramen magnum is more forward and central, implying that the skull rested with perfect ease and equilibrium on the vertebral column. Despite having such a coarse and bestial skull, he must have been able to maintain a perfectly upright posture. As a result, the Broken Hill skull bears only a superficial resemblance to Neanderthal skulls, with numerous differences. Despite their differences, Neanderthal man and Rhodesian man share a common stock of primitive characteristics. They must have spread and lived for a long period of time across vast areas of territory. In Europe, Neanderthal man appears to vanish abruptly after the glacial period, but this may not have been a complete extinction. He could have survived in other areas. Homo rhodesiensis appears to reveal the persistence in Africa of a human type that has long since become fossilized in Europe. This type appears to have preserved in his skull and face the primitive features of brutishness, but over time he appears to have attained a perfectly upright posture. Whatever the case, the Smithsonian Institution suggested an age range for the fossil of 150,000 to 300,000 years old, with an upper bound of 500,000 years suggested by animal fossils collected from the site. Nonetheless, a new technique applied to the skull allowed quarter-millimeter thick fragments to be removed, and the skull was thus directly dated, with the new estimated age range being 324,000 to 274,000 years ago. But the destruction of the paleoanthropological site has made direct stratigraphic dating impossible. In fact, other evidence suggests that the fossil may be from only 50,000 years ago, which is not impossible given that some Africans, like Eurasians, interbred with an extinct form of hominin around this time. What's more, the precise phylogenetic position of this species of primitive man cannot be determined. It has been pointed out that the refinement of the face was probably the last step in the evolution of the human species. The Rhodesian man, a so-called ghost species, who has a nearly Neanderthal face but a more modern brain case and skeleton, may revive the idea that Neanderthal man is an ancestor of Homo sapiens. Whatever the case, these African ghosts appear to be evolutionarily distinct from modern humans, just as Neanderthals and Denisovans are. This suggests that they descended from the same African group as European Neanderthals. Thus, the theory holds that 700,000 years ago, a population diverged from the modern human lineage to become what we now call European Neanderthals. At the same time, another split occurs, producing an African Neanderthal. It's unclear exactly who these African Neanderthals were. Because no ancient African hominin's genome has yet been sequenced, it's possible that physical remains of this ghost species have already been found. Unpublished data suggests that this ghost species existed around 300,000 years ago, when modern humans first appeared. As already discussed, after years of research, including direct dating of the skull and other human and non-human elements discovered near the Broken Hill site, scientists have determined that the Broken Hill skull is approximately 299,000 years old. The physical and pathological characteristics of the Broken Hill skull appear to indicate that the owner of the skull did not die so long ago. Africa was originally named the Dark Continent by a European journalist and explorer who saw Africa as unexplored and mysterious. We are thus encouraged to believe that Kabwe man must have survived for a very long time in the Dark Continent, as one of the last representative of a very ancient human form, now obsolete in the midst of the modern races. And with that tantalizing statement, we'll leave you to ponder the mysteries of our shared human history. Until next time, stay curious and stay questioning. Also, please subscribe, share, and check out our channel's other highly compelling videos. Thank you and take care.